here, and we're back at it again with a Snicker of magic. It's been a while, but it's okay. This time around I have kittens near me. Got beautiful kittens. Hi, kitten. My room is a mess, but it's always a mess. Who cares? Stop attacking me. Why are you attacking me? And then there's this one. Cutie pie. Okay. Back to the book. Hopefully I'm better at reading by now, but no promises. Florentine said I had magic in my veins. Word for word. That's what she said. Uh-huh. Aunt Chloe pulled a red plait. My terrible reading skills. They've come out so fast. Aunt Chloe pulled a red plate out of the sink. She passed it off to me, and I swirled the dish twirl around it once before setting it off to dry. I swirled the dish towel around it once before setting it off to dry. She says she knows things about this town. I said she knows things about people. She says our people might be magic. Cleo didn't say anything. I looked to my uncle instead. You heard me, Booney. We might have some family magic. Booney sat on the couch, fixing shiny new strings to his banjo. New strings for new songs. Sincerest regards, the Beetle. I couldn't wait to tell Jonah what I'd written. I maybe shouldn't have drawn a tiny heart in place of the O in songs. But otherwise, I think I did a fine job. We got magic in our veins, Booney sang softly as he turned the banjo pegs extra tight, then plucked a string. Pink zing. Drum-dee-ding. Thrum-dee-ding. Thrum-dee-thrum-ding. That banjo's already making happier music. I grinned. Splendidly. Booney winked at me. Mighty sweet of the Beetle. Thrum-dee-ding. Thrum-dee-ding. This Florentine person's talking nonsense, Liz. If we had magic in our veins, we'd be a little luckier than we are. I don't know anybody with worse luck than a harness. Pickles have bad luck, too, said Franny Joe. Ugh, Cleo groaned and rested her arm on the sink. I ain't having this conversation. I promised Holly that I wouldn't mention those stupid stories. Boney and I said at the same time, what stories? Cleo fumbled around in her apron pocket until she found her lighter. The flame on the tip trembled when she tried to touch it to the cigarette in her mouth. Just silly old folk tales, she mumbled. But the way Aunt Chloe glanced at me right then told me the exact opposite. I could tell by the sad in her eyes that she didn't believe those stories were folk tales at all. Tell me what you know, I said. I can handle it. I'm in 6th grade. Chloe sighed and set her dripping dish on the counter. Then she stomped out of the room. When Chloe shuffled back into the kitchen, she was holding the framed picture that hung on the wall of her former craft room. My current bedroom. The picture of the man standing beside a hot air balloon. Started with him. Cleo passed the frame to me. That man is Storm Weatherly. I nodded. He was one of the brothers Threadbare. The magician, Boone rocketed off the couch, his boots clamped across the kitchen tiles. He was still cradling the banjo in his arms. I saw our faces reflected in the glass as we leaned in close to study the picture. That magician, Chloe said, was also your no good, low down, deadbeat, drifted great-grandfather. We're part threadbare? I nearly hollered out. Then we do have magic in our veins. Big magic. I love magic, Franny Jo squealed. Biscuit yipped and wiggled her tail. Y'all won't love this magic. Cleo shook her head. We're kin to Stone Weatherly. Stone, you know the story, Felicity. Stone is the brother who lost that bad blamed duel. Boone held the picture closer to his face. So what's that got to do with us? Means it ain't magic we got in our veins now, said Chloe. All we've got is this stupid curse that which human gave. Which woman gave? Which woman, I mumbled. I've never heard of anything about a witch. Thunder crackled against the sky as loud as the dishes by the sink rattled and the lights flickered. Franny Jo ran for Cleo's arms. Biscuit crawled under the couch. We better get the flashlights out, Chloe said, just in case we lose power. Boney and I followed Cleo so closely down the hall that we all slammed into each other when she stopped. The closet door fell off its hinges when Chloe opened it, but she simply sighed and slung the door against the wall. Before the brothers Threadbare had their stupid duel, they called on some old witch woman to set a curse on the loser. Cleo plopped a big orange shoe box labeled junk, etc., into my arms, and it was a humdinger of a curse. Curse to wander through the night till chords align and all's made right. I shivered as Cleo repeated the words Oliver had already told me. Boone tapped nervously against his banjo, but that was a long time ago. That's not going to do with us, right? That's got nothing to do with us, right? His voice sounded shrill and crackly. Stone Weatherly lost the duel, Cleo repeated loudly. Half of her body hidden in the closet, rummaging through boxes and quilts. She emerged holding a small wooden container, which she settled on top of the junk box. And because he lost, he had to leave town and live out that curse for the rest of his days. He couldn't sit still. He'd sleep for a few hours, but then he'd wake up in the middle of the night, sleepwalking, sleep running, sleep dancing. A jing. Stone became restless. He managed to marry eventually, but he never had much of a life, hardly ever saw his wife or his kids, because he couldn't settle down. He couldn't set roots in any place. He was cursed with a restless soul. Like Mama, I gulped. Cleo didn't answer, neither did Boone, but I felt my heart whisper against my ribs, yes. I swallowed down the fear in my throat. Why'd he fly a balloon? Because that's the only way he felt any peace. Cleo scooped up a quilt with her free arm and tossed it into the hallway. As long as Stone's body was moving, his heart could rest. He saw the whole world from the basket of that balloon, but the whole world's nothing compared to people you love. Stone didn't ever see his family, and we're cursed the same as him. I didn't ask it like a question. I said it in the for sure affirmative. We were cursed. Cursed pickles, cursed harnesses. It's only a story, Cleo murmured. She huffed as she lows in another shoebox of flashlights and batteries. Okay. Then she propped the door back against the closet. We piled all of our survival gear plus a bag of Cheetos into the hallway. Boone didn't help us. He was still studying the picture of Stone Weatherly. Chloe, Boone narrowed his eyes at the picture. Is that a banjo on his back? Guitar, Cleo said. Stone's brother Barry played the banjo. He played the very same one you're holding, in fact. Boone's eyes glanced up slowly from the picture. Come again? Cleo's nostrils flared as she looked away. She took a long draw of her cigarette. I'm done telling these stories. I promised Holly I wouldn't mention them. Y'all are going to get me in a heap of trouble. Boone's eyes sparkled mad blue. He pulled the banjo off his shoulders and shook it at Cleo. Why do I have a banjo that belongs to the brothers of Threadbare? Cleo heaved a sad sigh as she leaned back against the wall. The lights flickered again. Thunder pounded against the rooftops. Cleo narrowed her eyes up at the ceiling, took the cigarette out of her mouth, and hollered, Hush! Cleo was the only woman I knew who was brave enough to yell at a storm. Cleo, Boone clipped. He was the only man brave enough to yell at my aunt. Fine, Cleo seethed. Our mother's family lived away up in the backwoods of Virginia. One day when she was still a little bitty thing, she saw a fancy old car zooming down the gravel road towards her house. Mother said an old